Hey everybody, welcome to Dad Talk. Today we are at the NRB, and I'm sitting here with the legendary Pat Boone. Pat, how you
No.
doing?
Pat Boone, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're telling the truth.
Yes, sir, Pat. It is such an honor to sit down with you. You know, I've listened to your music for years. I know my mom and them used to talk about listening to your music. What's it been like all these years in the music and the film industry?
It's a constant state of flux, change, and most of it not for the better. When I started, it was clean. Everything was wholesome. There were all-American standards. I was known as the young Mr. America, kind of guy who was going to college. Pretty soon, quickly, I was married, even in the beginning stage of my career. But I was continuing to go to college, making movies, television, records, and going to church and preaching and leading, singing in the services. And this was my life. And I didn't have to make apologies. That's just who I was. And so, but there was a man named Elvis Presley who came along right on my heels. And he began to change things because he was exciting. He was breaking a lot of the rules. And he's a good guy.
Right.
And I loved Elvis. And we both grew up in church with our families. But he was a single guy, bachelor, and he was very sexy. And although I was having a child a year, which he wasn't doing, different images. And so I just kept on my way. Fortunately, God was with me and saw me through, but the whole music industry has been drifting, and now it's falling into just total immorality.
Right.
And things that we didn't even dare say are now being in song lyrics, in movies, on television.
Right.
And not only being talked about and the language used, but it's all being celebrated, and the kids growing up thinking, that's what I want to be. I want to be like that. We don't have enough effective moral role models, and including family, because families aren't staying together either. Young kids aren't even getting married, much less staying married.
Right.
So our society is in terrible trouble. All this has happened in the 50 or 60 years since I began.
Yeah, I mean, so I know you've been in both sides of it. You've been in the music and you've been in the film. I'm curious.
Recording, recording music and TV.
Yeah, so you see where the family was when you first started, and kind of what our society was like then versus where it's at now. How do you feel that entertainment, when it comes to film and when it comes to music, has really played a role in changing that?
Well, there was a long period where there weren't what we would call Christian films. In fact, very few family films. Everything was sliding, rushing the other way. But some brave people took chances and created some worthy films. And if they were Christian themed, sometimes they wouldn't get wide distribution, but they kept making a difference. And Ted Baer, a movie guide, proves year after year that films that are family oriented and faith-based make money. People pay to go see those films.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the others that spend multi-millions on filth and corruption and violence, some make a lot of money, which is what tempts everybody to go after it. But a lot of them lose their shirts, and yet they keep making films about the most degrading things. Meanwhile, there's some Christians, brave Christians, in certain parts in the country who are doing films about family, about football, about marriage and kids, and where Americans who are trying to be real Americans and real Christians can see themselves mirrored in those films. And those films make money.
Right.
They actually are profitable. They may not be in the box office. May not be the box office champions, which all the other movie makers are flooding to make. But they're making a difference, and they're making a very valuable difference in the kingdom of God, because movies used to picture families the way they were supposed to be, and we were the envy of the world, and the movie business was celebrated all over the world. Now America is rushing for the fast dollar, and the rest of the world is calling us the great Satan.
Yeah.
And we're giving them reason to do it.
It almost feels like it sometime, Pat, if there was any advice, knowing all these years that you've done this, the things that you've learned, if there was any advice that you could give to a young aspiring actor or musician, what would it be?
What I always give is make God your agent. Don't try to do it on your own. Don't pursue a goal that may be a hopeless goal, and stake your future on being a successful actor, entertainer, musician, because it may or may not happen. Talent, though you may have great talent, may not be enough to get you the break you need, where other people with less talent may be very successful. But an agent is one who opens doors for you, who, if you get a break, helps you make the most of it, get ready for it, maybe talks to others and gets you another opportunity. And that's the way careers grow. God is the best agent you can possibly have. And not only that, he knows whether or not what you're hoping for is what's best for you.
Right.
And what you're hoping for may be the ruination of your life, if that's what you seek and build all your hopes on. These talent shows where these judges, it bothers me so much. A 10-year-old kid these days who can really sing comes on and knocks the judges out. You're a star. I can't wait to come to your concerts. This 10-year-old is thinking of herself or himself as a star, and it's not going to happen.
Right.
And the rest of his or her life, they're going to be wondering what happened. They told me I was a star. Well, yes, this person had talent, but there's millions of other people with talent.
Right.
and so God opens doors, and if this is not what your current goal is, not what's going to make you happy and fulfilled, let him lead you into plan B, where you may make more money, have more success, be happier than fighting it out with a lot of other people with talent that want what you want, and they're going to get it maybe and you don't. I mean, it's a tricky, treacherous business. I don't ever encourage young people to go into show business.
Right.
Unless God opens the door, which they can honorably go through.
I can definitely understand. Pat, what was that like, balancing your career versus having a family, being in the spotlight and coming home to your kids? I mean, what was that like, having to get that balance?
It was easy. For me, it was very easy because my wife, dear, sweet Christian woman, we fell in love when we were 16. We married at 19. We had 4 kids by the time we were 23, and I was graduating from college. And I was already had my own television show on ABC at 23. I started at 22, and I had hit records and were making movies. But Shirley and I were having a baby a year. When I graduated from college, we had 4 kids to take care of. And I had this able, wonderful partner in life to keep a sane family pattern while I'd go out and hear the screams and all the adulation. And I knew that this was for an image in people's minds, but Shirley knew me, and we had 4 kids, and they were the most important things in our life. So we were always in Sunday morning church, Sunday evening church, and if there was a prayer meeting during the week, we were there. And I was mixing that with my career. So my church life and my family life kept my head straight. I knew this was a profession. I was fortunate to be doing well in it, but home is where my life was. And it is still, with 4 daughters, 16 grandkids, and now 10 great-grandkids.
Right.
And my wife, I'm still married to her. She's in heaven, but she's still my wife.
Yes, sir.
We're going to be together. She's just moved upstairs and helping the Lord get a place ready for me.
How long were you and your wife married?
65 till she went to heaven, and now 2 more years.
67 years.
67 years, and we're still married.
Yes,
there's never
sir.
going to be another Mrs. Pat Boone. She's it.
Yes, sir. I love that so much. So 67 years of
in
marriage.
the entertainment business.
And in the entertainment, that's a very respectful thing. That's something that you don't hear of much, especially doing what you were doing. So I've got to ask, what's the secret to a successful marriage? What advice?
The Lord, always. I grew up as a Christian when I was 13, just baptized, confessed my sins such as they were, but I received the Lord. And I tell you, I wasn't a bad guy to begin with, but knowing that Jesus had received me, because I read Matthew 10:32 on my own. My brother, a year younger than me, got baptized before I did, because it was expected.
Right.
I wasn't doing it for that reason. I wanted to do it. I understood it. So I was reading the Bible for myself when I read Matthew 10:32, where Jesus says, if anyone will confess me before men, before others, I'll confess him before my Father in heaven. And I knew that meant on the last day. If he denies me, I'll have to deny him, because
Right.
he's denied me. And I said, I was just barely 13. I could understand that. I was supposed to receive Jesus so that if I died before I got to be 14, I was going to be in heaven with him. And so that shaped my life. And right through with my 4 daughters, they all became Christians, married Christian guys. My wife, of course, a wonderful Christian woman, and yet we were lovers, we were sweethearts, we were soulmates, and we were doing all this together, but the Lord right in the middle of our lives together. We worshiped it. We had breakfast with the Lord every day before I took the kids to school. And literally, that wonderful verse in Revelation 3:20, Jesus, he's talking to Christians and settled churches that are not making him happy. But he says, I'm knocking at the door. If anyone will open, I'll come in and dine with him. It became a revelation recently. He could have said visit or sit or teach. No, he said, I want to come in and eat with you. He wants to be invited to our meals. Well, we say grace sometimes. Not everybody, but lots of us do. But that assumes he's around somewhere. Well, he may be knocking at the door. Can I come in? Can I sit down with you?
Yeah.
And I thought back to those mornings, so many mornings when my daughters were young and growing, when we had breakfast with Jesus every morning before I took them to school. And the day was well begun, and they were headed in the right direction, and I could let them out of school with their friends who had no idea who God was, but my 4 daughters did. And they were good influences on their friends. And if things didn't go right, they'd come home, Daddy, can we pray for a friend who's pregnant, a friend who's on drugs, her parents are divorced, she's going to have a nervous breakdown. And so we came together as a family right there in Beverly Hills, Hollywood, praying for their friends who were all loused up in their lives because they didn't have Jesus in the center of them.
Well, Pat, I love hearing about successful marriages, and I love hearing 67 years. That's an amazing marriage. But what we're seeing right now, out of 1,000 new adults, only 39 are getting married. Marriage is going away, and over half the marriages that do happen are ending in divorce.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, because sharing your life with someone, I think, is one of the most beautiful things that you can do. Unfortunately, in the hard times, I think in the hard times, people just quit.
Yeah.
They don't persevere.
They
And
do.
marriage
They
is
quit.
going to have the hard times.
And look, we could have, there were trouble spots, as there always are in any relationship that goes on for that many years. Some differences, disappointments, letdowns, mistakes, and we could have called it quits and moved on trying to find somebody better. But those 4 girls, I knew that if I was ever going to provide for them the life I wanted them to have, it had to be through me as their dad and their father. And my wife's husband. And so, and Shirley was the same way. We owed it to our kids and to look to the Lord to stay together and work out our problems. Well, time after time after time, if there was a problem and we worked through it, we were closer together than ever. It was like glue. It was just making us tighter. One good person, male and female.
Right.
So I've said to Shirley, in the last couple of years of our lives, I hope that we're Mr. and Mrs. Pat Boone in heaven, not 2 angels who happen to rub wings every eon or two. And she said, well, Jesus said there's no marrying or giving in marriage. I know there's not going to be any more marriage ceremonies because we're married to him.
Right.
We're his bride. But if he made one good person out of you and me, why would he separate us? So I hope that we'll be Pat and Shirley Boone in heaven. She said, I do too. I went out around the pool. It was in Hawaii, a place we've had over there for many years. And in 30 minutes, I'd written a song called You and I. Very moving, touching song about facing the inevitable. We're all going to make that transition. We're not going to die. That's what the world calls it. We're going to pass from this life into the next existence. And we're making a decision right now, every day as we live. There's only two exits. One goes to heaven, the other goes to hell. Nobody wants to think about that. But that's what Jesus said. And that awful thing he does say, which is a great warning to all of us, in that last day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we do mighty things? We're part of your gang, weren't we? He says, depart from me, I never knew you.
Right.
Yeah, you were members of the club. You wore the name. You may have even done some good things, but you weren't living the life. And you weren't concerned about what I really wanted in your life. And so we never got an intimate relationship like you and your husband or you and your wife. With me, it was well, look, if I agree with what your word says, maybe I'll try to do it, but I don't think that's for now, that's not for today. He doesn't change, and he expects us to follow him because he is his word. You know, the word became flesh and dwelt among us. If we reject his word, we're rejecting him. And so much of even church people today are succumbing to the social mores and saying, well, I guess that's okay. You know, that was another time, and these are good people. And yes, they may be living what the Bible calls an abomination, but we love them and we're going to encourage them. Maybe they'll even come to church with us. Instead of saying, hey, you got to get right with God, because it's not us you please. You're supposed to be pleasing him. He is your Savior. He's not just an acquaintance. He's the one who's going to make the decision on that last moment of the earthly existence, where you go, to the right or left. As a bare 13-year-old, I understood that, Matthew 10:32. And so I confess him before men, always have and always will, and claim him as my Lord and take communion with him, so that I know. That's a great thing about communion, by the way, that just occurred to me the other day, really. When we take communion, in the real communion of it, communing with the Lord and committing ourselves to him, as we would have in that upper room, at least we hope and think we would have, we are knowing him and he is knowing us, so we'll never hear him say, I never knew you. Because in those days when we took communion together, you were pledging your life to me, and I was receiving you, and you were receiving me. Those are important things. They have deep, eternal consequence, and too many people just slough them off. They don't know what to believe. So I've written my last book. It's called If. It's very blunt. It's very loving. But it's saying you're making your decision right now on where you spend eternity. And you may not know it, and you think, well, you'll wait till the very last and make your decision when you're slipping away. Maybe you'll do a sinner's prayer at the last. No, you may be too late. We're just making the decision now daily about where we're going to spend eternity. We won't die. We'll go on. We will continue to exist, but not in this body and not in this, what we call life. It's eternity. And at that moment, when Jesus is letting us know the verdict, there's not going to be any retrial. We're deciding it now. And so even though I'm an entertainment business, and I've been blessed and I'm grateful. It's my relationship with him all these years that has helped me steer a good course. Not that I haven't made mistakes, but I certainly have. But I know where to go to get my conscience clean, for one thing. But if I repent and make confession of mistakes I've made, he's faithful and he'll forgive me. and now we're on a right course again. And I'm headed to heaven, and I want everybody to come with me.
Yes, sir. I'm right there with you. You know, Pat, it seems like back in your day, two-parent households were what we strive for. Unfortunately, right now, we just passed Father's Day. The statistics are 1 in every 3 children in the United States are without a father.
Yeah.
In the African-American household, we're nearing 80% of kids without a father.
And people wonder why they're headed in the wrong directions and fighting and getting involved in drugs. They don't have any guidance. No role models, and the gang is the family to them, and it's a recipe for disaster in this country, in their lives, and we're all paying the price.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't just hurt their lives when they strike out in vengeance or strike out in panic, and people get killed. We get hurt, all of us are getting hurt. Society is being damaged. The American way of life is being destroyed.
Yes, sir.
And we take it for granted like it'll always be. No, it won't. So we're just sounding the alarms, but also the answer. There is an answer, and He is the answer. So your question about what should a young person who wants to be in entertainment do? So I say, make God your guide, your agent, your Lord. And if what you're wanting is good for you, He can lead you into it. If not, He'll lead you into something that's better, and you didn't even think about it. You didn't know what it was.
That's it. Yes, sir. Pat, I know you got a very busy day. I appreciate it so much. I see you are getting an award later on this week.
I wasn't sure that people knew that, so I haven't been talking about it, but yes, it's an award for just living my life, but having success in movies and television and recording more than many.
Yes.
Especially to be successful in all 3 recordings, music, television and movies, and still be married and have a family and have a good reputation. It's just it's been I must say it's been a rugged and not easy path always, but I've always tried to choose the right even over the expedient, over what seemed good. Turned down Marilyn Monroe for a starring role in a movie. I saw that. And other things like this that other entertainers thought was foolish. And yet I went right on to make Journey to the Center of the Earth, which was a huge success, much bigger than the film they wanted me to make with Marilyn, which was a flop.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that in advance. I just had to do what I thought was right. So, and God's blessed me and helping me make the right decision, and then blessing me for making it. What a good deal.
Yes, sir. What's next for Pat? I know you talked about having a book. What do you plan on doing next?
Well, I'm promoting 2 films that I've made 3 or 4 faith-based films recently and been part of at least. But The Mulligan is the film we're promoting right now. It's going to be coming out either late this year or right after the first of the year. It's about golf, but it's a Christian-themed story about an aged ex-pro who was a great golfer and now is a mentor to younger would-be good golfers. We've got some of them actually in the film, like Tom Lehman and Dennis, Davis Love, and some great ones. But this guy's mentoring this young hotshot businessman who wants to be a good golfer, thinks he is, but he also wants to be a billionaire, and his family he's going through a divorce. His son can't stand him. His life is ruined personally, and he wonders why he can't play good golf. And so it's a story that all golfers will love. I'm wearing +4s, knickers like the older golfers used to do, Bobby Jones, Gene Sarazen, and I'm wearing their clothes, which I do wear sometimes in celebrity tournaments. And it's a great entertaining story with a strong moral. And this old ex-pro leads the young hotshot to the Lord eventually, helps him get his marriage and his family back together. But It's entertaining, it's fun, it's exciting, and I think it's going to be a big success. It'll be in the secular distribution, but it'll be on the God Channel as well. But I've also played a starring role in a Reagan film about Ronald Reagan, and that is yet to be released. And then another one I actually helped fund and starred in, called Miracle in the Valley. It's a faith-based Western. And so I've written the book, and I've written songs that I'm recording still. I've recorded more songs than any other singer in history, more than Frank Sinatra or Bing Crosby.
Oh, wow.
Some 2,300 songs.
Do we got another heavy metal record coming?
No, probably not. I could have done it, but the MCA label thought it was a fluke. I mean, because I had gone over every lyric. There's not one thing I had to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. And all the lyrics of those songs, they were actually good songs that I uncovered or discovered in all that heavy metal clamor.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the other artists whose songs I didn't do were saying, hey, Poison and Motorhead and Aerosmith, all saying, hey, do some of our songs. And I was going to. But MCA thought that first was a fluke. They didn't want to put up the money to do it. So I moved on. But maybe it's just as well, because I don't want to glorify heavy metal. That was not the purpose. It was simply saying there's some very good songs that I discovered underneath all the screaming and yelling and
Definitely is.
like Ozzy Osbourne's song Crazy Train. It's a great social statement about how hard it is for young people to decide what's real and what isn't when they see all the hypocrisy, double standards, lack of real guidance around them. They're going off the rails on a crazy train. That's his song.
Yes, sir.
And I found it to be very worthy, and then he moved in next door to me. And he was my next door neighbor for 3 years, Ozzy Osbourne.
I didn't know that.
And we got along great. His wife and kids watched their language when I was around. He didn't, but I knew, raised the way he was in a poor section of England, that's just the way he talked. But he wore a cross, and we got to be good friends, really. When he moved away and they did the TV show, my version of his Crazy Train, they used as his theme song for his show. And I was stunned. He didn't use his own record.
That. Yeah.
Crazy, hey, that's how it goes. And one of the shows, at least, maybe two, where Sharon, his wife, was washing dishes for a moment. He was there with her. She said, don't you miss Pat Boone? It was the best black neighbor we ever had. and we got along great. And of course, I shared the Lord with what little time we did have. And I could see that they were open. They are open if they know it's real. But if they don't see it lived, and they see double standards like he was writing about among people that supposedly know the Lord, they're not attracted to just their quote religion. If it's a real relationship with the living God, if they were convinced of that, which is true, they'd be attracted to it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they're only going the way they learned growing up, and they're learning to be successful in their ways. So it's hard to get through to say, hey, there's an even better way than this. And so that's where I like to visit with all these heavy metal guys, and I find that people like Dave Mustaine of Megadeth.
Oh, I love Dave, yeah.
They're Bible scholars. Alice Cooper, I did his song. His song, No More Mr. Nice Guy, in that album. He is the son of a minister and now is a virtual minister himself. Alice Cooper. When they give him that, whatever that sign is supposed to be like the devil or something, yeah. He says, oh, are you a what's the college sign? Are you an Aggie? Oh, you're an Aggie? Well, I'm an Aggie too. And he turns it to good. He has a solid rock foundation, which is to bring kids off the city streets into a place in the afternoon after school. not many people know about it, but it's where he's devoting some of his money.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I look forward to these projects that are coming out. Make sure that you go check out Pat Boone on his website, on his social media. And I just want to say, listening to you, it was a beautiful hearing about your marriage and how you kept that together through your career. I really enjoyed that so much.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to talk about the way God's blessed me.
And it was an
Maybe
honor
we'll
to
do it
meet you.
again.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Everybody stick around. We'll be right back.